a big news event in the Jiu Jitsu world. On November 29th, 2018, a student named Jack Greener, a Jiu Jitsu student, a white belt, was rolling with his coach, Francisco Iturralde. During the roll, Francisco Iturralde attempted to do kind of a rolling back take, but Jack Greener's neck was caught underneath. Often you would just kind of roll and tuck your neck and roll, but Greener's neck was caught under their bodies, and it was caught in an odd position. It caused his cervical vertebrae to get fractured and caused him to become paralyzed from the neck down. And you could see this immediately in the video where he could not move. The video is kind of hard to watch. Terrible injury, horrible situation for everybody involved. Then there's a court case to determine, was there negligence involved? Should there be money rewarded to Jack Greener for this situation? And in the end, $56 million was rewarded to Jack Greener. Luckily for Jack, after much rehabilitation, he eventually regains the ability to walk and actually climbs a mountain. There's a video that is made about him, a documentary, from being paralyzed to being able to climb this mountain. I'm going to read a New York Post article on this situation, and then we're going to get Iturralde's point of view, because the reason I'm making this video in the first place is because I saw that Iturralde posted his point of view on Instagram, and it gives an interesting perspective. So this is a New York Post article from June 5th, 2025. The title says, "Beginner Jiu-Jitsu student awarded $56 million after black belt instructor paralyzed him from the neck down." A Jiu-Jitsu student has been awarded $56 million after he was paralyzed from the neck down by a black belt instructor known as Sinistro. So they are highlighting the fact that he is known as the Sinister. Jack Greener, 30, was a beginner white belt sparring with his teacher, second-degree black belt Francisco Iturralde, 33, when he suffered the catastrophic injury in 2018, crushing his cervical vertebrae and rendering him a quadriplegic. Video showed the beginner on all fours when his instructor flips him forward, awkwardly twisting him face down and twisting his neck. The black belt instructor did a technique that placed his entire body weight on Greener's neck, causing him to instantly fall limp and lose all function of his limbs, said BJJ legend Rener Gracie, who was called as an expert witness in this case. Greener was hospitalized for several months, suffering multiple strokes as a result of his injuries, which came just weeks before he was due to graduate from college, his attorneys said. He sued the Del Mar Jiu Jitsu Club in San Diego for the injuries he blamed on Iturralde, who earned the name Sinistro or Sinister for his dynamic, aggressive grappling style, according to his bio on a site selling online instructions. And here is a link. There's a link here to his website where he is selling jiu-jitsu instructionals. Gives an idea of his wins and his record, and yeah. Greener, who is now a mountain climber and motivational speaker, was awarded $46 million by a San Diego jury in 2023. The studio appealed the decision to the California Supreme Court, which denied to overturn the judgment this week. The verdict also affirmed by a state appellate panel late last year. With post-judgment interest, the award now exceeds $56 million, Greener's attorney said. The final appellate court's ruling cements a critical legal victory not only for our client, but also for injured athletes across California by reaffirming that sports instructors and facilities may be held accountable when they unreasonably increase risks beyond those inherent in the sport, said one of Greener's attorneys, Rahul Ravipudi. And that's the end of that New York Times article. I remember during the time there was a little bit of controversy about Rener Gracie's involvement, just him being considered the expert witness. I mean, if you're into jiu-jitsu, Rener Gracie would not be the top jiu-jitsu expert, but I mean, for a person that is not involved in the jiu-jitsu world, this might be a kind of an easily accessible front man for jiu-jitsu, because the Gracie Academy does have excellent marketing. The controversy comes in the fact he was paid a lot of money to testify in the manner that he did. So it says, yes, Rener Gracie was paid $100,000 or $3,000 per hour for his expert testimony in the Del Mar Jiu Jitsu Club injury lawsuit. So Rener Gracie details his perspective on the failed technique that led to injuries. BJJ black belt Rener Gracie, the head of the Gracie Academy, served as an expert witness for the plaintiff during the case, testifying the specifics of the technique and how it was applied to Greener. Following the outpouring of backlash against Gracie for his involvement in the case, Gracie recently released a 22-minute video explaining his role as an expert witness, his opinion on the incident, and his understanding of the facts surrounding the case. In the video, Gracie details how Iturralde performed the back take incorrectly, thereby putting Greener at extreme risk of injury. Gracie also explains that the technique had never been taught at that academy and that Iturralde had never performed the technique in that manner. Gracie admits that the student Greener was not a complete beginner, having competed previously as a white belt. Ultimately, Gracie concludes that given the difference in skill and the manner in which the technique was performed, Iturralde failed to ensure the safety of his student. Importantly, Gracie did not comment on the black belt's intent or lack of intent to injure Greener. Gracie also explains that he was compensated for his time as an expert witness, as is typical practice. However, it later says that Rener Gracie donated $100,000 of the court case earnings to charity, stating that he didn't testify for the money. So I don't know. The donation may have come after the bad press, but I'm not sure. A few days ago, Francisco Iturralde, the coach in the situation, he posted a letter just explaining the incident from his side and how it all went down. It kind of changes my perspective on things, and maybe it changes your perspective on things. So here is Iturralde's post. My name is Francisco Iturralde. I've been practicing jiu-jitsu since I was 7 years old. Now I'm 33. Currently, I'm an instructor, business owner of a jiu-jitsu academy, husband, father, and friend to over 100 of my students, and a leader to affiliated gyms in Mexico and Texas, besides my academy in California. I grew up training under my brothers and my professor in my hometown city of Guayaquil, Ecuador. At the age of 19, I was an excellence in the sport as I achieved 5 world championships in my color belts. By the time I was 19, I was offered a job position, teaching in New York City under Professor Fabio Clemente, who was the first ever jiu-jitsu teacher and business owner or academy owner in the city of New York. After being with him for a few years, I ended up moving to California, training under Professor Rubens Cobrina Charles, where I sharpened my skills and made it to be one of the top 5 lightweight competitors of my generation. It was a lot of hard work and sacrifice, and all of my experiences then helped me become the instructor and the person I am now. After living in Los Angeles and training under Master Cobrina and his team, achieving many medals and titles, I decided to take a break from competition and focus on my true passion, which is teaching. Not just teaching competitors or kids who want to excel in jiu-jitsu the way I did, but actually teaching parents, families, and people who just need to de-stress and have fun with the art of jiu-jitsu. I grew up training in a family environment with my friends and siblings all around me on the mats. So when I started teaching full-time, I wanted to replicate this camaraderie that I was brought up training with and give people a fun environment free of ego and a place where they can be safe, train, have fun with jiu-jitsu, and enjoy the art. That's when I moved to San Diego and took a job at Mar Jiu Jitsu, where I taught classes for 3 years. During the end of my time teaching there in December 2017, one of the worst tragedies I've experienced in my life happened. December 2017? Was it 2017 or 2019? Let me just double check. Oh, this is 2018. So the post that's promoting Greener's film says the injury happened on November 29th, 2018. So I'm not sure what the date was. He says 2017. It's probably 2018. He could have the date wrong. During the end of my time teaching there in December 2017, one of the worst tragedies I've experienced in my life happened. Jack Greener was an incredible athlete. He had over a decade of wrestling experience and about 4 years of jiu-jitsu experience. He medaled in many tournaments, winning his weight and absolute divisions, also showing extreme skill and an aggressive style when competing. Jack's style and technique showed that he was a lot more skillful than the average white belt he competed against. His vast experience in wrestling made him a very skillful grappler and way beyond the level of an average white belt. I understand this starting as a white belt and starting with a lot of people that had already wrestled or done other things before. There's a huge difference between a wrestler white belt and a off the couch white belt. I'm just saying that this is a fair point that a wrestler would be beyond a white belt. And I can understand why he would say this because all of the articles I read highlight beginner white belt. I mean, white belt is the beginner belt, but having a white belt doesn't necessarily make you a beginner grappler. Some guys that are just white belts, they've been white belts for 5 years, depending on how their schedule is. So yes, I understand what he's trying to paint here. He was a very skillful grappler, way beyond the level of an average white belt. While we were practicing jiu-jitsu, my student Jack and I were in a sparring session. I was attempting a back take, and Jack attempted a Granby roll, which is a wrestling move to escape the back take. As a result of the exchange of techniques, a tragic accident happened and he hurt his cervical spine. Though he went through a difficult time initially, thanks to God he recovered and is now a proof of a miracle and an inspiration for everyone who has gone through such an injury. He is climbing mountains, racing bicycles, and continues to inspire all who have ever been injured doing jiu-jitsu or any other combat sport. There is video footage of the incident that anyone can watch and see for themselves what happened. What is being said publicly is mostly assumptions from the media and sensationalist websites trying to clickbait and make this accident look like an intentional, freak, or malicious event. It was actually a tragic freak accident, any grappler or fighter's worst nightmare. I do not believe anyone would do this on purpose, especially not someone who trains jiu-jitsu and knows the importance of camaraderie and love for training partners. Following the accident, I was forbidden to talk or have any contact with my student Jack. This goes against my nature. Usually, when any of my students gets bumped or hurt, I truly care about them, follow up with them the same day and the next day to make sure they're okay, and do everything I can to help them with their injuries. I've been on the receiving end of injuries myself, and my training partners have always been amazing to me whenever I got hurt. That's the least expected whenever you get hurt at jiu-jitsu. Friends and partners check on you, take you to the hospital, and make sure you're fine and will be helped if you need anything at all. I mean, the idea of taking friends to the hospital, it goes to the nature of the sport. There is inherent danger in it. I guess it's something that you try not to think about too much, or you always assume that though there is injury associated with it, that the injury is always going to be minor. It's very hard to imagine yourself inflicting or receiving any major injury, but it does happen. It is a risk. I mean, generally it's safe. I think all sports carry the risk of injury, but it's more apparent when the goal of the sport is putting each other into injurious positions. Especially for the uninitiated, there's the hint of intentionality, because this is kind of what we're training for. Right after the injury, I was forced by my employer to stay at the gym and continue teaching classes. I was a nervous wreck. I was scared of teaching. I was scared of sparring. I didn't even know if I could continue training jiu-jitsu. I couldn't believe that the art I loved so much could, in a split second, cause something so tragic. It broke my heart. I thought I was never going to be able to teach, train, or compete in jiu-jitsu again. I was truly traumatized. Soon after, I had to quit my job as an instructor at Mar Jiu Jitsu. I just couldn't teach. I felt sick every time I stepped on the mats. This was 100% trauma inflicted by the accident, and how powerful the impact was on my psyche. Since I was forbidden to reach out and talk to Jack, because we were informed that a lawsuit was going to be filed and communications were restricted to lawyers. I had to accept and do as they instructed. If I didn't, I would have been left alone in the legal battle and completely liable. I purchased a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, hoping to somehow help Jack find peace in his mind during this tragic time. But my employer interfered in the delivery of the book. It was not allowed. The insurance company lawyers forbade me from any contact with Jack or his family, as they were handling the defense. I had no choice but to follow orders and move on with my life. Thanks to Rener Gracie, who convinced me to keep training, I was able to find some hope. If it wasn't for him, I might have quit jiu-jitsu completely. Clark opened the doors of his studio, trusted me, and gave me classes to teach. I taught there for 3 years before opening my own studio, continuing my mission with my students. The trial was not justice. I find it ironic that justice and law are not the same. Plaintiff lawyers tried to prove I was reckless, pushing Jack beyond his limits. They manipulated evidence and prevented us from showing Jack's wrestling expertise, his prior tournament experience, and other signs of his skills despite being a white belt. Jack was a highly skilled grappler with great technique and physicality. Because the lawsuit was for such a large sum, I'm sure many were interested in profiting from it. Judges, lawyers, and others. The insurance company left me thinking that if they lost, I would be liable for the full amount, so I was forced to stay quiet and say only what they allowed. During the trial, plaintiff lawyers lied about me, suggesting my nickname implied recklessness and danger. So remember, his nickname was the Sinister, Sinistro. They fabricated claims that this wasn't the only lawsuit against me, which is false. Injuries have happened over my years in jiu-jitsu, but we always checked on each other and helped each other recover. Lawyers painted me as a terrible human being, which is not true. I am a caring instructor and father. I have been a vegetarian for over 10 years and cannot imagine harming any living being. I have never done anything violent in my life. To me, jiu-jitsu is a sport and a lifestyle, not fighting. It is about bonds and community. Because of objections and trial procedures I did not understand, I was unable to defend myself fully. The trial was set up so I would be found liable. Not only I, but also the studio and insurance company were ordered to pay $52 million to the plaintiff. Thank you for taking the time to hear my side of the story. In the last year or so, I've been the victim of constant harassment, Internet trolls messaging me, people calling my phone and leaving threatening messages, wishing me the worst and saying they will make me pay for what happened. I hope that those who took the time to search my personal information and contact me with ill wishes will also take the time to read this statement and understand the other side of the story. I believe many have fallen for clickbait that is wrongfully and sensationally simplistic, designed just to get more views or attention. But the truth is different. This is the truth told by the person who lived it. I love you all, Jiu Jitsu community. Jiu Jitsu has given me the greatest purpose in my life, and I will keep giving back to this art until my last breath. Oos! Sincerely, Francisco Iturralde, instructor and owner of Gentle Arts Jiu Jitsu. Well put, very well put letter. I feel for both parties, obviously. I feel for Francisco Iturralde because regardless of whether we determine that he was being reckless in his actions, it was definitely unintentional. He didn't go out there thinking, I'm gonna break this guy's neck today. So, I mean, I feel for him. I feel for Greener for sure, because he is just paying to train, and then he ends up getting this bad injury. The silver lining of this story, I mean, he wins a lawsuit. Money is not better than health and not being a quadriplegic, but at least his medical bills will be covered, because I imagine that although he has made a recovery from this and he's now climbing mountains, I can imagine that his medical bills would have been astronomical. It's good that Iturralde had the insurance that didn't make him personally responsible for it. I can imagine that he's forever just going to be not just careful, but a little bit afraid of hurting somebody. So no winners really in this story. I think given the circumstances of how everything happened on the day of and how it's ended up now with Greener recovered, riding bikes, climbing mountains, this is a best possible ending to such a bad situation. If you like this video, I offer free likes and I offer free subscriptions to this channel. Feel free to take advantage of the free subscription.